Alright, for my first action, I'd like to talk about World Anvil. World Anvil lets you go from massive binders of notes to a nice cohesive online platform where you can organize all your information into one simple, easy, manageable system. You can keep track of NPCs, where my fourth action went, player backstories, and so much more. For my second action, I'd like to use the showing off action, where I can tell you that you can upload custom NPC stat blocks directly to your campaign. And all it takes is just one search and you can find any NPC that you have curtailed to your world. Makes finding that tavern keeper a little faster. For my last action, I want to tell everyone that World Anvil is an amazing product for amazing GMs, so check it out. Hey GM, what does multiple attack penalty mean? And we're live. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Deadly D8 interview. I am your host, James. I am joined by two very lovely guests. I use he, they pronouns, and I am so excited. We're just going to hop right into it. I am joined by Mark Seifter.
Hi, I'm Mark Seifter. I am the director of game design at Roll for Combat, working on Battlezoo products. My pronouns are he, him.
And I'm also joined by Stephen Glicker.
Yes, I'm the owner of Roll for Combat, publisher for Battlezoo line, basically everything to do with Roll for Combat, and pronouns are he, him.
So let's just hop right into it. What is the Battlezoo Bestiary?
Battlezoo Bestiary
Yeah, I can talk.
It's okay. And it's Bestiary. Everyone's like Bestiary. It's actually Bestiary. It's French. So if you ever want to know how to pronounce that correctly,
If you the way to remember it is if you think that it was the Battlezoo Bestiary that where all the monsters in the first one were developed by Patrick Rennie, you're wrong on both counts. It was the Battlezoo Bestiary where Patrick Rennie developed all of the monsters.
There you go.
I've heard it wrong like in like half the interviews.
He doesn't correct you if you say his name wrong.
He never does,
never does.
But I like getting his name right.
So the Battlezoo Bestiary is basically the culmination of the RPG Superstar. I'll do the super quick rundown. Is RPG Superstar, very famous contest. Paizo ran it for a long time, and the winner would often put out a module, and there would be one winner. Went away because it was way too much work, and I approached Paizo in 2019 and said, "Hey, could I bring it back?" And Eric Mona said, "Sure." We worked it out, and I brought it back as a monster contest. And I was going to have, instead of just one winner, originally I was going to have 32 winners, but then they're like, you need to make the book at least 160 pages. So I was like, all right, I'll have 101 winners. So we had 101 winners of people who would submit monsters. Then I went through professional judges, and those were mostly people in the industry, a lot of Paizo people. And then I went through public, and then we chose winners, everything from grand prize down to copper.
And some of those winners have participated in the contest again this year, so we can prove that Stephen did not make a Dalmatian fur coat out of those 101 winners
Are we
after
sure?
the last time. We can prove it because they are still around and they've been submitting to the contest again. We know that for sure.
Well, it was 101 monsters won. There was actually less winners because a lot of people
fair
won
enough.
more than once. So, but anyhow, and then we took them, we refined them, we got artwork, and we released the book. And there's also a section in the book about monster hunting and monster parts where you can kill monsters and turn them into gear. It's basically, if you want to get technical, it's basically the runic system from Pathfinder 2nd edition, heavily detailed and more refined, but using monster parts. If you really wanted to, you can even just take out the monster parts and just use the imbuements as runes. And that would work because it uses the exact same rules. It was written by someone who I think wrote the original rules, someone named Mark something, I forget his last name. And then he wrote the monster part system. And
I didn't write all of the original rules, but I certainly helped to write the original rules for Pathfinder 2nd edition on that. And I did write the monster parts system. And you can use it if you befriend monsters and they like give you a feather that is imbued with their power. And you can use it even if you don't want to do anything with monster parts. If you like incremental gear increases that level up along with you, you can use it for that too.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed is that, and this has been coming out in the reviews, the monsters are weird. Like the monsters, because they were created by, I wouldn't call them normal people, but it's like people that aren't heavily in the industry. And sometimes because you get a lot of direction, if you're called by Paizo or any large publisher to work on something, they give you direction and they're told you to do a certain way. And then usually all the monsters end up in the style of that publisher, which makes sense. And because they want to keep it a certain, style, or it has to fit a certain adventure and such. But with this, some of these monsters are just weird and there's no pattern to them. So, you could have a cute pirate parrot next to, a horrific demon. And like, why? It's like, because that's what we got. It was like, it was whatever we got. In fact, people
is it really surprising though, Stephen?
Well, we did get
when you ask the internet to vote for a name of a boat, you get Bodie McMokeface, right?
I love Bodie
so if you ask the internet to vote for a bunch of monsters, are you shocked that there's a bunch of weird and really interesting off the wall monsters from that?
I am weird that we got 2 rope monsters, because that was like, why do you have 2 rope monsters? And I was like, that's what they got. I don't know. As a rope golem and the what's the other one? I forgot the other one. The part was hard as ordering the art, because it's like, okay, I got a rope monster and then I got another rope monster.
It's gonna happen every year, I think, because the fact of the matter is that we wind up taking a high percentage of the monsters that were rated highly by the fans. So this year there were like, what was it, over 400 submissions, but we're still taking over 100. And so once we got the ones that were rated highly by the fans, like even among the ones that I have judged, which is not going to be all of them, I've seen like 2 monsters that were both constructs that split in half eventually, and then both halves attack you, which is hyper specific. And we have 2 of them, or like 3 monsters that are like, and these are not necessarily in the final 100 or so, but they are in the top half or so of the ones from the better than the top half of the ones from the public voting. There's like 2 or 3 monsters that are all coins. This is for this year.
I saw a lot of coin monsters. There were a lot of coin monsters.
I've actually intentionally not judged any of those yet because I'm almost done, but I'm saving them. I'm going to judge them together so that I can, because I knew going in just from looking at it, I was like, there's a lot of coin monsters. That's just the theme this year. So when you take a lot of monsters, a high percentage of them, we're going to get repeats like the rope monsters.
And something else is that, and no one really talks about this, but I have a video game background, and there's a big secret. And I also worked a lot with World of Warcraft and Blizzard, so I have a little bit of background with that. And the big secret of video games is the monsters. And if you're playing Elden Ring, that's, or if you played any Dark Souls games, like that's what people talk about. People are talking about the monsters. And it's funny because it's like sung hero of role-playing games, or the monsters, is that everyone always talks about the heroes and the classes and the spells, and they talk about the monsters, but not the same way. And they're almost like, well, they're just a bump or a roadmap to get into my level 5 character or my level 6. They're just ways to get experience points, but really they are what brings, the heart and soul into at least the combat portion of a role-playing game. And important and interesting monsters are what makes a good game. So I also felt that, give them their due, and we're getting really interesting monsters. And this second batch, so now we're running it again, and we're going to come out with the Battlezoo Bestiary, strange and unusual, because everything was strange and unusual. So I gave a little bit of a goal or a theme this year, which was strange and unusual. People are like, what does it mean? I'm like, it means whatever you want it to mean. We'll find out, won't we? Because everyone thinks something is strange and unusual. And they are really strong. Like last year, they were pretty strong, but this year, the monsters are much, much stronger. So I have not been looking at a ton of them, because next week judging will be over, and then Mark and I will go through and sort them. And it's done by a mixture of voting by the public and the judges, as well as us looking at them and seeing, like, for example, anything could become a grand prize winner like even if you gave us, say, a level 25 monster, because what we're going to do is make a family out of it. So in theory, we can make like the level 2, the level 4, the level 10, and level 15 monster. But we have to make sure also that these monsters work well, not just in their own, but as a larger part of the actual ecosystem. So that's something we're going to be looking at when we do the final judging next week.
Yep. So that's kind of how a Battlezoo Bestiary comes to be. And we've got one that's already out. You can go to http://battlezoo.com to...
What? Who does that? Just say battlezoo.com.
Yeah, but I usually put https.
No, you don't have to. You haven't had to do that for like.
But when I type battlezoo.com, my computer tries to make it HTTPS and then it doesn't work.
Oh. You got to tell me.
I think that's a strictly you thing, because
that's because my computer wants to do it secure.
It
wants to do it secure and not regular HTTP. And so I started linking battlezoo.com, Stephen, in places for the product and having it not show up on Reddit until someone on Reddit told me it wasn't working. And then I realized it was because it was going to HTTPS and not HTTP.
Okay. I will fix that. That is
so interesting.
That is an annoying thing. Well, this is what I do for a living. Is I build Fortune 500 websites, so I have to deal with crap like this all the time.
Okay, well now you know, and no one is half the battle.
No one told me.
So it is at battlezoo.com, which is actually just a redirect to the backer kit, and you can get the first one.
Yep.
The second one, like Steven said, the judging is about to be over soon. But there's also something really cool that as of this interview, the main text is in. So we're just going through some refinements and layout before we can get the PDF available. And that is Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragons.
Yes. What a perfect segue into it. So what is the Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragon? Because from what I see, it is a, dragon all over.
Yes. It is over 100 pages. And in those over 100 pages, like it tells you how rich it is and how many feats there are and how many options to understand how little on a top level is in the book, which sounds weird, but in those over 100 pages, there is one ancestry, 2 archetypes, one of which has like a class archetype that slightly adjusts it, and some lore entries, plus a subsystem for using hordes for your dragons. If that doesn't sound like a lot, that's because the one ancestry has 45 heritages. For every true dragon in Pathfinder 2, there's 20 of those. In Pathfinder 1, there's 19 of those that didn't make it into Pathfinder 2 yet. And 6 brand new ones that exist in the world of Alucard, which is the Battlezoo world, including the 5 wild dragons and 1 new one that was created by a celebrity that we have not revealed what it is yet to anyone. People know, if they've been reading the updates, that the 5 new wild dragons are the amber dragon that loves to gossip and spread rumors, the cerulean dragon that likes to explore and adventure, the harlequin dragon that likes to reveal insights by being like a wise jester, the indigo dragon that loves to party, and the vermilion dragon that loves to exaggerate stories. So there's a bunch of new dragons. There's 45 heritages, ancestry feats that all the dragons can use, ancestry feats only some of the heritages can use to reproduce the abilities that those dragons have had in the monster versions of them. Then the archetypes let you use class feats so that you can get some of the more powerful or class feat centric abilities. There's a draconic ravager archetype that's for the I'm a dragon, I'm gonna slash you with my claws and go into draconic frenzy and then bite you with my jaws. And there's the dragon mage for, oh yeah, but I'm a spellcasting dragon. I've got all these spells. I'm gonna put spells into my breath weapon so that I can breathe while I cast spells, all sorts of things like that. And so there's so much content for all of those that these archetypes have more feats than a class, right? I mean, but your character doesn't have to get overwhelmed by all of those feats because every individual character only has one of those heritages. So you if there's 3 feats for each heritage, then there's over 100, but only 3 of them that your character has to look at that point. Oh, I forgot Draconic Scion versatile heritage in case you're human or elf or Leshy has a little bit of dragon in you for some reason. That lets you get some of the dragon ancestry abilities for your non-dragon character. Now, these dragons are balanced so that they'll fit in any adventuring group with the rest of your party. There's a lore explanation, a special ritual called Lux Aeterna that dragons can perform to get powerful super fast. Instead of waiting 2,000 years to become gargantuan and super strong, you can get it in a few months, maybe a few weeks. It all depends on how fast you exercise your magic. It sort of becomes like a muscle that can rapidly, has rapid plasticity, but you have to push yourself to the limits, like going on adventures. But what it does is it overloads your magic temporarily, so you may lose some of your abilities right away, and then you get them back very quickly by adventuring, aka being a PC. So they're balanced with other characters, but there's sidebars. As usual for Battlezoo, we like putting in sidebars. We want the reader of the book and their group to be part of the design team at Battlezoo. So we put in sidebars to customize everything. So it's like, oh, but what if you want your dragons to actually be a lot more powerful? Well, here's some ways to do it, but also make the other PCs powerful easily. Like you use Ancestry Paragon and Versatile Heritage and give the dragons, or not versatile, we use Ancestry Paragon and the free archetype and give the dragons the free archetype for the Draconic Ravager or Dragon Mage and Ancestry options for dragons, but an elf could gain more elf feats and gain more archetype feats from something else. Or you can choose as a group to be just like, you know what? No, I don't know why you would do this, but no, we want dragons to be overpowered and just better than all the other characters. That just makes more sense to us. So we have that option in there too. It's like, here's how you can make dragons just more overpowered than everyone else. So you get all the options you want, but to have all the options, you have to start with one that's balanced so that you can, that it's easy to go from there to adjust it, essentially.
I think you need overpowered ones because as a GM PC, obviously, I need to be the strongest in the party. My PCs are just merely toys.
So if you made a GM PC dragon, then you could do that. Yeah, that's easy. You just give yourself more additional free abilities, some of them from higher levels. Don't give any of the PCs anything else. And then that way your GM dragon PC can be the star of the show, just as you were meant to be. Don't do this. Please don't.
Oh no,
this is a joke. Post-law.
No, it's edited out. So why did you guys choose to do a full dragon instead of the obvious, where I think a lot of people go to, which is just the Dragonkin or the Dragonborn from like 3 to 5th edition? What about
everyone
true
does
dragons?
that, and we kind of have a Draconic Scion, so you can do someone that's partially dragon, but a lot of people want to play a dragon. They don't want to play something that's like, well, this is slightly a dragon, or this is almost a dragon, or this is close to being a dragon. They want to play a dragon. And so I have thought since Pathfinder 2nd edition released, I was at home being like, if I was going to do something on my own for a third party, and it's going to be hard because I'll need a lot of art and it'll be expensive, so I probably can't do this. But I would make a dragon ancestry and use archetypes to give some options. Maybe do like the chromatic dragons and maybe the metallics. And then I could put out little expansion PDFs for the other dragons if it's sold enough to like pay back the art, which maybe it would lose money. So I had been thinking about that for a few years. And then when I was working with Steven on the monster parts system for Battlezoo Bestiary 1, and he was like, we could do some more things too. What could be next? And we were talking about some really cool ideas, some of which have not seen the light of day yet, and I can't tell you, but that we'll announce eventually. And I said, those are all really great. One small thing we could do, like along the way, is this idea that I've had since the beginning to do for my own thing, of this small, gonna be like a 10 to 20 page PDF of with up to 5 or 10 heritages and just some basic stuff. Steven's like, okay. Yeah, but let's put in all the dragons. How long would that be? I was like, well, if it just had all the dragons, at the minimum, it'd be like 40, maybe 50 pages. He's like, okay, we'll do that. And so we agreed to that. And then we did the Kickstarter, and it had those and the adventure path. Although it said, this is a hardcover giant book. And I was like, wait a minute. And he said, no, we got this. We've got stretch goals. And so then we put in more content, more feats, bigger archetypes, draconic scion, new dragons, a horde subsystem, and lore for the dragon so that you can understand about your dragon. Because some of these dragons have like one sentence for their lore, because like notoriously dragon stat blocks don't fit in a bestiary. So it'll be like, they'll be like, lunar dragons like watching mortals' lives when they see them on the planet, or something like that. And then I wrote like 500 words about like, oh, well, the reason they do this is it's kind of like a telenovela or something, where they're just watching these people like, oh my gosh, what is this human gonna do? Is next week, are they going to like fall in love with this other human? And they're just kind of figuring it out. And the ones who become adventurers are the ones who just are yelling at the screen, being like, no, don't go into that room. That's the wrong room. So they just become adventurers so they can come in and just bust in and be like, no, you went the wrong way. Go this way. And like join the adventuring group.
I didn't think it was possible to break the fourth wall in a TTRPG, but I think you clearly just found it.
Yeah, well, these dragons are breaking the fourth wall because, I mean, there was a sentence about them. It just said they liked watching people's lives as spectators. And so that's kind of what they're doing, is they assume that they watch. I've dug down into what it said in the original source lore, but expanded it to breathe some more life into it and give some more context.
Yeah, and the reason we did dragons is, to be honest, no one can do it. Like this was the thing we kept hearing over and over again, is that you can't do dragons. Excuse my dog barking in the back if you can hear that. The number one thing we were seeing over and over. Hold on, let me tell you. All right, they stopped. The number one thing that people were saying during the Kickstarter and comments were, you can't do a dragon. And the reason is they're like, we'll be too powerful. And I have seen and bought all the dragon books, and I saw the dragon book for 5e, and no one really did it. Like everyone was doing, like you said, they were doing like dragon can or something that was sort of dragony, but no one could figure out how to make an actual dragon with the same powers that a dragon has. And if you think about it, it's not possible, supposedly. And there's one thing Mark and I seem to be very good at, is like, oh, it's not possible. We'll figure it out. Trust me, we'll figure it out. And we do. And Mark figured it out, is that, it's actually once one of those like, oh yeah, why didn't we just think of that? Like, oh no, they're still dragons. We're just compressing your power instead of you having slowly building power over thousands of years. You are using all your energy, power, and magic over a few decades, aka you become mortal. It's like Superman becoming mortal.
It doesn't actually necessarily lower your lifespan either.
Oh, okay.
Well, so some of the dragons, so there's like a socio-cultural divide where dragons who do the ritual and don't do the ritual, like sometimes are at odds with each other. So you're just spouting the propaganda from the traditionalists. So they say that since you got your power so quickly, you must have a shorter lifespan. However, some of the dragons who did the ritual have lived for centuries or millennia. There's no proof that they have a shorter lifespan, other than the fact that they often die just because they went on so many adventures trying to get powerful.
Well, you know what? That's like the Jemadar. It's like, yeah, you can live a long time, but you don't survive long enough.
Yeah,
live.
That's what it is. You don't survive because the ritual encourages you to do risky things in order to get stronger. And
our host
you're very unlikely to survive very long, because the adventurers are very unlikely to survive very long.
There you go. Our host got that because they see the bat'leth above his head. So
yes, very much loved Star Trek. No, I was thinking it's a little bit more akin to Lord of the Rings elves, where they could just technically live forever, but as long as they they could die via combat.
Oh yeah, right. Like they can live forever, but if they die, they die. So
one of the dragon heritages in this book has that as one of their heritage ability, that they
a Klingon bat'leth?
No, not a Klingon bat'leth. The ability to not just live for millennia, but live until they're killed. If you kill them, they will die.
But anyhow, that was like this book, was a good example of trying to do something. Like a lot of people are doing things that everyone else does. And there's a saying, it's if you're doing it differently, then there's a 99% chance there's a reason why people don't do it that way. Like, I'm going to do it this way. I'm like, well, there's probably a reason why no one does it that way. But you know what? There's that 1% chance that you figured something out that no one else figured out. And I think in this point, we figured out something that no one figured out.
It's kind of both. Like, there's a reason they didn't. Which
it's
is
also
that
very hard.
It's hard. It was
really
technically
hard.
challenging,
Yeah.
and it required a lore infusion, which I think is kind of invigorating and very interesting, and even lets you explore different social dynamics. Just the idea of the fact that there are dragons whose families may be like, why did you do this ritual that like made you weak just to get strong later on, or things like that. You can have like dynamics that you play out that like for a magical ritual, it's kind of like low stakes compared to some of the real life versions of things similar to that, but that can still give you kind of a really rich role-playing experience. But you have to add all of that. You can't just be like, oh, you can play dragons. We have no explanation why, but for some reason, they work totally differently to the advancement. It doesn't take thousands of years. Why? It's a class. Just you figure it out. Like, it requires not just strong proficiency with the rules, but also creativity with the lore to make sure they're seamless and that everything you see makes sense. Is like, no, that's exactly what it should be based on that.
Yeah, and to be honest, it needs someone like Mark who understands the technical difficulties of implementing something like this. I mean, it is very hard. I've seen other people try and fail, quite frankly, because like they don't go all the way, or they'll like put some rules in and they'll dip their toe into it and they still have a lot left up to the GM. But one of the main reasons I hired Mark is that he wrote a large portion of the Pathfinder rules. He's built most of the classes, or at least had his hand in all of them. He's
not most, but I've built more than other single people have, but there's still so many people who work on the classes that is by far not a majority.
Okay, but my point is that you have had your hand in all the classes, all the ancestries, and all the Pathfinders, and so what it's like. And when I was working with Patrick Rennie,
like
Patrick
a genie.
Rennie,
yes,
to do the Battlezoo Bestiary, like he brought that extra piezo magic to make the monsters that much better. And once I saw that, and I mean, I knew that this is not a surprise. I needed someone who can also do that with crunch this hard. And, I see this a lot, even when we're working with freelancers, is that they have very good ideas, but the balance is really wrong. That's actually the most common thing we see, is that great ideas, way too powerful. You gotta knock shit down. You gotta make everything balance with the rest. And
some of the stuff in the contest is underpowered too. So you always have to be careful about what you're getting, and it's very difficult to get it on just the right level. But you want to be a little conservative, because if you are way not conservative, then you're going to put some things in by accident that really bust stuff. Whereas if you're too conservative, you might have a few rules that are like, man, second thought, I should have made that stronger than it was. But at worst, it's like, okay, these 70 words out of this book, that's 70,000 words, are kind of not very useful because we accidentally made it a little too weak. Whereas, oh, these 70 words out of the 70,000 page book now ruins the entire book because it's so busted. Everyone always takes it, and it not only ruins this 70,000 page book, but every other book too. So it's a risky balancing factor that you have to go into.
And that's something else. We did play testing. So we gave out the play tests. They were very helpful. And literally right before this call, I gave the play testers the final rules for them to go through. They're going to have fun this weekend. And originally we gave them 20 dragons, and now we gave them all 45. And once they saw all 45, now they can go through give their comments, and they actually made characters. They play tested them. They'll have a little time here, so I'm sure some of them will do that as well. So
they had some fun things where they were like, I've got a character who's the same level as this ancient dragon of the same dragon type, and I'm going to have them duel, which is like not a perfect play test for actual play, because characters are meant to work as a team, and monsters sometimes are meant to work not necessarily with a synergistic team and just with whoever you throw them with, possibly as a solo. But it wound up like being this epic blow by blow where they were like, and then we got to the last moment, and I was going to crush this opponent. It was down to like 5 hit points, and I rolled a 1. And then his turn went, and he missed every attack somehow. And then I went again and finished him off. It was like, it was very close, and they were meant to be the same level according to the level system. But you never know when you're playing a solo character, because if it's a support character, obviously it's not going to win against like a combat monster. But they were kind of like, I think it was like a fighter who was growing to like gargantuan size and using reactions to really make the day of the enemy very upsetting.
Yeah, the only problem with this book is that everyone said, why would you play anything except a dragon? And that I guess that's a good problem to have, but I'm starting to see that too. I'm like, why would I want to play something else?
Well, the good reason is
because Leshies are adorable.
But you can play a dragon Leshy.
Okay, but Cactus Leshy.
Wait until
Cactus Leshy is pretty good.
Wait until you see some of the new dragons. The wild dragons and the secret dragon are really cool, because that's something else. When I added the wild dragons, I went against type, because all these dragons are all like, they're all like moody teenagers. They're all powerful, or they're all mopey. I'm like, can we just have dragons that are just fun, that are just like goofy party kids? And so that's like where the indigo dragon came from, and the amber dragon. Like, all these are just fun dragons. And then the new special one, that one's really, really cool. That one, I can't even believe how cool that one is. That will be released very soon.
I feel like the new special dragon will specifically speak to your counter rejoinder about why would you ever play dragons?
Leshies.
Yes, the counter rejoinder of Leshies. But yeah, I mean, maybe not. We'll see. Still, though, they're not so overpowered that it's like, why would you play anything else? Because these are just better. It's just more of a like, dragons are cool, and they're equally balanced to everything else. So, and there's a lot of options for them. So you can you could play dragon characters for like dozens of campaigns without having repeated any of the options, most likely, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's like 300 plus feats in the book.
Yeah.
So
certainly,
you've definitely beaten out Oracle when it comes to feats alone.
Okay,
I think everything for the APG.
Admittedly, among those roughly 300 feats, some of them are Ancestry feats, and some of them are from the Draconic Ravager, and some of them are in the Dragon Mage. Some of them are in both. Dragon Mage has the longest additional feats line of any archetype in the game.
I just looked at that.
The Dragon Mage's additional feats, it's like probably like a page
for that.
An entire page of additional feats.
I saw that. It was like this big. I was like, come on, it's like half a page long.
Well, that's because a lot of the dragon feats are available to, if they're like about your breath weapon, are available to both Dragon Mage and Draconic Ravager.
I have good news for you.
Additional feats: Breath of the Dragon, Cantrip Expansion, Counterspell, Fool's Wisdom, Terrifying Rebuke, Dream Shimmer, Jester's Jeer, Piezo Breath, Thought Travel, Absolute Cold, Adapt Resistance, Cerulean Hazard Sense, Exaggerate Weakness, Grave Breath, Incredible Resistance, Oppressive Heat, Primeval Fire, Steady Spellcasting, Widened Breath, and that's only a small percentage. That's just up to level 8.
At what point do you just say, look at a Draconic Exemplar archetype and then just be like, this is all the feats, and then just leave it at that?
But it's not, because
I know you listed so many. I lost count.
If you thought that was all the feats that the other one had from level 2 to 8, it isn't. It's only a small percentage of the ones that the other one had from level 2 to 8. That's missing out on, at the bare minimum, that's missing out on Draconic Advance and I think Inscribed Disorienting Glyph, Ravager's Scales. I think Terrifying Rebuke wasn't in that other one. Bite of Opportunity, Draconic Frenzy. Let's see, Devastating Bite definitely wasn't in that other one. Impenetrable Scales. Peregrinate wasn't in the other one.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of them. And that was only, and Twisting Tail. That was only through level 6. And that was ones that were not in the other one. The point is, to get to 300 feats, you have to have a lot of feats. I guess that's obvious, but
yeah, but the point is like, this is the thing that I like to do. I give options, and like, it drives me crazy when you play a game like, you know, I played 3.5 and Pathfinder to the point that we just ran out of things to do. I mean, like, we were literally, I remember that, like, we were going to start another, this was right when Pathfinder 2nd edition was going to be announced. And we were just like, you know what, we have played everything. Like,
how did you run out in PF1? They had like
I know
things. They had like
because you know why? Everything. I'll tell you why.
Like when you turned and talked to your dog to get it to go away, there was probably a feat in Pathfinder 1st edition that specifically does that. Wait,
I'll tell you why. Because I'd say a third to half of those feats are garbage. Every single rogue feat was garbage. So they're useless. That was the first thing. The second thing is that it's not necessarily that the characters were different. It's that you always went through the same path. You always had to get the +1. You always had to get the Cloak of Resistance. Like, you always did the exact same thing.
The big 6 items.
Right.
And if you were an archer, you always took point blank shot, precise shot, rapid shot, many shot, clustered shot.
It was always the same. And that was the problem.
Like, oh, I'm always going to take these.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't like, is that in Pathfinder and 3.5, like, if you've been playing this for 20 years, I've seen it all. I've seen it go from, you know, it doesn't matter what character you're going to get. You're going to get those same items. And after a while, I was just like, oh, you know, we've seen it all. We've done it all. Like, that's actually why we did Iron Gods, because we're like, oh my God, thank you. There's like something new, like science fiction in our Pathfinder. And it was great. It was a huge breath of fresh air playing
Iron
that.
Gods is perfect. It is
Iron Gods.
I would call it the perfect AP. I love
very, 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 very good AP. I loved it. It was the first one they did using the modern sensibilities of making it into a trilogy. And I know they actually, I forgot who they hired, but they had maybe that was Crystal Frazier, but they had someone new on the staff who really organized it, so it was much better. And that was a great
that
AP.
Was slightly before Crystal came in, but Crystal was awesome, and
yeah, it was
all
really
of Crystal's
good.
APs were fantastic.
It was a really good AP, and I like the other ones after that. Trust me, I liked them, but it was like, and then we played Starfinder, and it was like fresh air. And that's why I like Pathfinder 2nd, is that, so we've been playing it for 2.5 years. I have had about 300 plus sessions, and it's still like people are just doing different things. Like, I haven't seen people going down a path yet, you know? Like, I haven't seen people doing, you have to do this and this and this. Like, people have been doing different things, which I like. And that's what I like. My point being is that when we did our books, we give you as many options as possible. That's why I feel I just can't do it. It's like, oh, let's put a 50-page book. I'm like, I can't do it, because I feel like, all right, it's like you get use out of it a couple of times and then you're done. Like, you will get this book and you can use this book for years and years, and the whole party can use it. Like, you will get a lot of use out of this book. You get a lot of use out of Battlezoo Bestiary, you know, between the monsters themselves and the dragon part system and the new imbuements and the monster mage. Like, there's something in there for everyone. And that's like kind of the whole philosophy here. It's like, I give too much out, but that's just sort of the way I am. I mean, Mark knows, he works with me. I'm like, more, like always more. Like, I would just want more and more.
Steven just wants more for the customers. Like, in many cases, for the original Kickstarter price, people were locked in before he added like more things to it. And so it's just going to give people more for their purchase in it, which I think is a pretty cool perspective for making books. And like, as someone who's working for Battlezoo, like, I don't mind. If I was someone who was like very tight on freelance and I was like, no, I have another freelance thing that's coming in after this, it could have been definitely a problem for me. But since I didn't, it was just like, okay, yeah, I'll do more of this. Heck yeah, this is something I wanted to do. And then now I work for Battlezoo. So it's like, yeah, you want more? We'll do more. Other things will come late a little later, but we'll do more.
Speaking of more, when you see the Indigo Isles adventure path, oh my God.
That thing is like twice as long as it was originally going to be. Like Stephen was going to those authors of like, 20,000 word adventure, but like he gave an outline that was full of so much cool stuff for people to do. So much interconnectivity that you don't even see in most adventure paths, because like characters will have sort of like continuity and things to help the GM run it. It's like very Stephen's GM for just a lot of years and used these books, so he knows what he would have needed to have that wasn't present in other adventures. And so it just ballooned out to this enormous size, and like a lot of the freelancers were like, oh my gosh, this is way more than I expected to do. But it also is just really impressive now with all of that stuff.
Yeah, if you like adventure paths, this is it's impressive. I mean, yeah, I wrote it, but the other thing is that again, I've been GMing forever, and also I have a background also with script writing, and I use a lot of tricks that you use in script writing and you use in plot development. And I mean, you can take classes on this. There's literally like on page 43, you need this to happen. On page 63, you need this. They actually have like specific page breaks when things happen, and they work. I mean, there's a reason why everyone goes to these Marvel movies and these movies work. It's like because people expect it and there's a cadence to them. And I actually haven't seen that done in adventure paths that frequently. And the ones that are successful do it, but I don't think they realize they did it. So I brought this connectivity of having one adventure from level 1 to level 11 that is all encompassing, like things that happen in the first adventure happen in the second and third. So they're all connected. And they don't really do that with the Paizo adventures. I won't get into why, but there's a lot of reasons. It's mostly very hard. Like I found out the hard way that making one adventure that connects throughout 11 levels is incredibly hard.
It gets harder and harder as you get to the later parts. The third part has been especially challenging consolidating with the first and the second.
Well, on top of that, the first one is a very basic, I wouldn't say basic, but it's a traditional adventure. That's a better word, traditional. The second one is a little bit different and a little bit out there. And the third one, you will see things that have never. And the only other person I think who's probably played, she's probably played more than me, is Linda, because Linda has seen thousands of adventures being in charge of Pathfinder Society and working with them and doing Pathfinder Society so long. So she's seen everything. And when I pitched this to her, I gave her all these ideas and she was like, I've never seen these before. And I was like, there you go. Like, we're going to invent new things that have never been done in adventures.
So I'm thinking through, and I believe not quite thousands, but I had to think because it's like a significant percentage of 1,000.
It's a lot.
But yeah, so Stephen not only outlined this, but the three authors that we have for this adventure path are none other than the Paizo development manager in charge of adventure paths, Ron Lundeen, wrote the second part. The senior developer, Patrick Rini, for adventure paths, wrote the first part. And then development manager in charge of all digital products and adventures, Linda Zeiss Palmer, wrote the third part. So it's written by like some of Paizo's people who are the top for Pathfinder in terms of adventures for the three parts. So I think Stephen's right that individual things that Stephen had in the third part of the adventure, I can say, well, there was this one adventure that like sort of had something that was like that one part, but there's definitely never been an adventure that had all of those things that are building together in quite this way. And I won't spoil it because it's the finale. It would spoil the entire adventure, but it's got all sorts of weird twists.
Well, it's very much like the Marvel movie, like Endgame. Like it builds and builds, and it starts off very normal. You start off very actually, I can say what the beginning is. The beginning's fun. It's was a search for the missing map, is that you get half of a treasure map and you're called in front of the king and the queen and the court, and they're like, hey, we found this treasure map and we have half of it, and we heard a rumor that there's the other half has turned up, and you four, you're the best adventurers and the ones that were told that could do this, and we're giving you the opportunity to go find it and hopefully bring some renown to our town, to Rumplank. And if you find some cool stuff along the way, you can keep it. We're kings and queens, we're rich, so all we care about is if you can find it and like help bring prosperity to our town, and that's it. And so you start the adventure on a scavenger hunt, a treasure hunt, and that's the beginning of the adventure, and that's it. That's all you know. And the towns themselves, the other thing that's fun about this adventure, there's no humanoids in any of these adventure paths.
So when he says humanoids, he means
right,
humans and the core ancestries.
Right.
And furthermore, actually monsters from the regular bestiaries too.
Yes,
all of the
that's right.
monsters are either from Battlezoo Bestiary or are new to the adventure path. So the players are going to be guessing, because unless the players also read Battlezoo Bestiary, because it doesn't have like trolls or something else where it's like, oh, we know trolls, they're weak to fire.
That's something else, because of like how many times have you played these games and you're like, oh, I know what's coming. Oh, we're going to be fighting goblins. Oh, we're going to be fighting rats. You're always fighting the same things. Not this time. Like, you have no idea what's coming because you've never seen anything. Everything in this is new. All the humanoids are new ancestries. All the monsters are new. The location is brand new. The Indigo Isles is made up. So even if you're a hardened veteran like myself, nothing will be recognizable. So this will have, a lot to offer people. Plus the size of the adventure. It's almost 200,000 words. So that's like 400 pages. And it's still the same size as a regular adventure path. There's just a lot of options. Like the adventures themselves just give you, as the GM, all the tools you need so you don't have to guess. And we outline everything, and we do it quickly. It's not like you're going to have to be digging for things. And even little things, like when I was talking to Patrick about, like, they would outline, I hate when they do this in the adventure paths, is that they would have an outline in one area, and then they would have the consequences or the things the GM should know at the bottom of the paragraph, which for some reason is the standard way. I'm like, dude, I hate.
Oh, you mean the development section that's always at the bottom?
I hate when you do that, because I'm like, I'm reading it, and then I'm like, wait, I was supposed to know this? It's at the bottom. I didn't say. And then you say this by accident to the players, and you weren't supposed to say that. I'm like, can you put that part that's important at the top, please? So I read that first and then get to like little things like that. I completely redid during the writing portion. So as a GM, it's like, tell me what I need to know and then get into the player mechanics, because I'm reading this and I might literally read it at the table because I want to keep things moving. So little things like that have been changed.
So you'd read it and it would be like, the room is empty and mildew hangs in the air. Development, 3 assassins are hiding behind the tapestry. Oh wait, God. No, they're tapestries. They're totally good. Exactly. You guys want to come into the room?
So a lot of things like that. And even something that was interesting is that they never do travel correctly in these adventure paths, because like you have to go from point A to point B to point C, and at best they will say it's 6 miles. And I'm even happy when they say that. And for Pathfinder especially, timing is important. There's actually a big thing with timing, because you have downtime activities. Like, you need to know how long these things take. I'm finding that's very common in these games. So there's a lot of moving around in the first adventure. So we have a table that's like literally an XY table that has, here's where you are and here's where you want to go. And you can literally go, I'm going from here to here, 8 miles. I'm going from here to here, 4 miles. I'm going here to here, 10 miles. So you know exactly how long it takes for your players to get to where they need to go. and you don't need to be guessing or measuring on the map or anything.
Using your finger and being like, my finger's about the thing that says 3 miles, and 3 fingers for 12 miles.
Yeah, and it matters.
Yeah, I think the newer APs such as Ruby Phoenix and, from my experience, Quest of the Frozen Flame have definitely improved upon the travel, as Quest for the Frozen Flame is quite literally a giant exploration in the first.
Why could it be that I've been talking to Patrick? I swear to God, I'm not going to take credit, but I'm going to take credit. I saw some things in the new adventure paths that I spoke to Patrick about, and then I saw them in there, and I was like, I see. Sorry, Ron. When I was talking to Ron about it, I'm like, hey, Ron, I always want to do this. He goes, me too. And then I saw them in the adventure path. I'm like, maybe we helped each other.
It's possible. It could be parallel evolution, but it could also be working together. And I mean, there was a Battlezoo Bestiary monster in Quest for the Frozen Flame.
Yep.
The Leshy husk, I think, was in there, or one of the husks.
One of the husks.
Maybe Arboreal husk. One of the husks.
Yeah, one of the husks. Actually, Patrick asked me about that. But Ron and I, and that's the other thing. It actually has been working out really well, because when Patrick and Ron, they're kind of in charge. I don't know how many people give them feedback the way I was giving them feedback, because like Ron gave me his adventure and I gave him back 17 pages of notes, and he was thrilled.
So I can tell you that no one generally does that.
Yeah.
For the only person who would be able to give notes, like Ron might give notes to Patrick,
right?
Maybe, but with APs they have to separate things out. In the digital adventures line, Linda can give notes to the digital adventure developers who are in charge of, say, Pathfinder Society, Starfinder Society, or the other digital adventures, because she's the development manager. But no one would be giving notes to Ron or to Linda.
Right. Exactly. No one gives them notes. So, and I know this is like, if you're in charge, you often don't get honest feedback. You just don't. It's just the nature of the beast. And I gave this to him, and it was all constructive criticism. It was nothing like, oh, this sucks. It's like, no, let's expand this. Like, you mentioned this thing here, but you never mentioned it again. What is it? Things like that. Things that just happened during writing. And it was a much stronger adventure after. And, even as I said, the travel map, that was from the first adventure. I was saying to Patrick, like, Patrick, man, we are moving a lot in this adventure. I have no idea how long it takes. And I guarantee my players are going to ask, how long does it take? Because they need to know, like, they need to know if they're going to be preparing things or doing crafting or planning their days. Like, it's a very big deal. And here's the other thing that we did everywhere in the adventure path that I love. I have the what happens if they lose. This is all over the adventure path. What happens if the PCs lose? They never have that. And I'm like, we have it. If you lose, this is what happens. Now, again, you don't have to do it that way, but we have things like, if the PCs lose this contest, like, it just stopped. It didn't even actually say anything. It just assumes, it always assumes the PCs win these adventure paths. In ours, we have, this is what happens if they lose, and this is how you can play it out. As a GM, 99% of the time, I have to figure this out on my own and just like wing it. But here we actually outline it, how to handle it as a GM if things go the wrong way, or if the characters decide, all these adventure paths, they're not on railroads. I like to call them, they're on roller coasters. So like they're on rails. They all are. I mean, as much as you want to say it's an open world, they're not open worlds. But that's what you're buying. When you're buying an adventure path, you're buying an adventure path. It literally has it in the freaking name. It's a path. You're on the path. So you're going to be on this adventure. So don't complain. Oh, it's on railroads. But anyhow, ours is on a very fun roller coaster. If they go off the roller coaster, what do you do? Like, we have all that in there. Like, it gives you all the tools you need to play and run this adventure. And then this will also even, I think, help you in your future adventures as a GM, because you'll be like, oh, I never thought of, like, what happens if they lose? Like, how should I do that? And how should I figure out the distances of things ahead of time? Because if they're going to be doing a lot of traveling, things like that, it's going to be a good adventure. We haven't let our host talk at all. Mark, do we even have a host, or is it just us?
I know, I'm feeling so left out, but I'm enjoying the spoilers so much.
There's no spoilers.
No, I completely agree with a lot of what you're saying, especially as like a forever GM. Like I often do a lot of like improv stuff just as a GM because I'm way too lazy to prepare. And having that like in case they lose like note on the AP is like such a lifesaver because it's just like, well, that's one less thing I really have to worry about is like coming up with a completely new like, ah shoot, the monster wrecked the party a little harder than I thought.
Yeah, and not only that, if you're paying money for it, I actually was talking to my players. So, like, if you're buying an adventure path, you want this information. You want to know what happens. Like, if I'm buying a world guide, then I'm expecting information in that guide so I can build my own world or use the tools in that guide. But if I'm buying an adventure path or an adventure, I want it written out. I want as much details as possible. I like to play rules as written. And yeah, of course you have to make up things every so often. That's also fun part of the game. But I paid good money to have professional writers who do this for a living create an adventure for me. It's, it's like going to see a high school play versus a Broadway show. I mean, you're paying good money to see that show. You want some pretty damn good quality when you're seeing that Broadway musical. You want the top quality music and sets and design and costumes. So if I'm paying good money for an adventure path, I want it all as nice as possible. I want pictures for every NPC. I want amazing maps. I hate when there's black and white maps in these adventures. Like we got Blando to do the maps, and he's done maps. He's actually done all the D&D maps. Like if you've seen any of the D&D modules, most of them are done by him. The maps are ridiculous. He's actually doing the new Dragonlance maps. I don't know if that was a spoiler or not, but too late. He is very famous in the map making community. I got him to do all of our maps. The artwork is like stunning. I think we have up to 200 plus pieces of artwork. It's just endless. So, and like if
Firat Solhan, one artist who drew so many dragons.
Well, that was for your book. That's your book. Your book.
Oh, right. I was thinking about the dragon book now.
The dragon book only has one author, sort of, and one artist, sort of. So that's it. The cover's done by someone else, and the guest dragon's done by someone else. But that's it. The whole book was written by Mark, and all the dragons, all the artwork was done by one person, and that was it. So that's rare. You're not going to do that. The Indigo Isles is the exact opposite, where we have dozens of people who worked on this book and dozens upon dozens of illustrators, but one map maker, only one map maker.
So can people who are new to Pathfinder 2nd Edition and D&D 5th Edition use the Indigo Isles and the Bestiaries and all that? Just Bestiaries. Gotta get out of that habit.
Yeah, the Bestiaries can be used, and it's for Pathfinder and 5e. And the 5e version has gotten amazing reviews because I have Pathfindered 5e. One of the reasons why I think why the 5e monsters are very weak in a lot of cases is because they use the static block, and the static block is terrible for layout because I won't get into the reasons, but it's a very bad layout design. And I'm not exactly sure where they did it. I still don't know why. But because of that, everything has to fit inside this block. And often you will get kind of mundane monsters with not a lot of abilities. And it's hard for them because it's this block for them to go onto more than one page. Or if they do, because you got to figure that, how do you get this block on with the text? It's a mess. And I looked at it and I was like, man, no block. I'm gonna make it look like Pathfinder. Like Pathfinder figured it out. So we have these very, very long text blocks for 5e, and all the 5e players are like, thank God, thank you. Because there's tons of abilities now. Instead of just having like 2 abilities for these monsters, we took the Pathfinder monsters, which are much more complex, and made them work for 5e. And they have been excellent. And then as for if you're new to any of these games, you can pick up the Bestiary book and you start using it. Obviously, it has the rules for monster parts, but there's the Dragon Mage, which is basically the blue mage.
The monster mage in the Bestiary.
Monster mage.
Not to be confused with the Dragon Mage in the Dragon book.
I don't get confused.
Soon
there's a lot of mages and a lot of dragons. Blue mage, basically from Final Fantasy, you can take monster parts and then use them to learn spells, which I personally love because I like randomization. We have the Vestige Hunter, which allows you to like take monster parts and then imbue them into your body. So you could like put wings on your back and fly. The Dragon Book, obviously, if you want to play dragons, as long as you know how to play Pathfinder, as long as you're starting, you can use it. And half the book is lore. And if you just want to know more about dragons, because a lot of these dragons have like not even a sentence, one sentence of lore. That's it for half of the Pathfinder dragons. And so Mark had to write a whole paragraph.
I think it's like more like a third of the words are lore than half, but still there's enough lore, but still tons and tons of rules.
And then for Indigo Isles, we also are putting out the player's guide. And the player's guide is going to be like 100 pages. That will have all the new ancestries. I think there's 7 new ancestries.
Of note, like this is not a free player's guide. It's more like the Lost Omens character guide in that it's like it's a worldish guide that has a bunch of new ancestries and options. Because I saw him like putting his fingers together on the 100-page player's guide.
It's not free. It comes with it.
It was part of the pledge for the adventure path, but it's being split into a separate book for logistical reasons and to make it easier for someone who just wants to learn about the world and have the ancestries to purchase it separately for their character, so they don't have to buy a 400-page adventure. Also, that would not be fun.
Yeah, but each ancestry, like we have the Gamayan in there, we have the Gatsgori, we have
the Gamayan are pirate parrots. Galtsugori are a heritage for sprites that they just always want to be working on something or like fixing something or maybe disassembling it. There's Orpok. They're like they're culinarian big people who like they came on boats and they don't live that long, so like their boat voyage spanned multiple generations and they don't really remember everything about where they came from, because the ones who arrived on these islands came with like only their cookbooks and a few other things. So like our history must be really based on food, because they had like just that portion of their text that they had brought over. And like there's just interesting facts about like Gambayans are not just pirate parrots. They were like nearly corrupted into demons by a demon who was decided that he was angry at the fact that they had like a magical song that was shared among their people, and that was like a really nice, pretty thing. And the demon's like, I will corrupt this, and almost succeeded, but then it got reverted. So there's like people who are trying to get back their culture because they like nearly were demons and destroyed a lot of their own history. And there's others who are like, let's finish becoming demons. That sounds like fun. Others who go around hunting demons and so on.
We have Wildfire Leshy.
Yeah, a Leshy heritage, Wildfire Leshy from the Battlezoo Bestiary. Yeah, written by none other than Linda, the Queen of Leshies, who wrote the original Leshy Ancestry, as well as the other Leshy Ancestry feats in Lost Omens Ancestry Guide.
We have who else do we have? We have the Hardigan.
Yeah, they're like a sheep people,
ram people. Yeah, they're actually, you would love them. They're warrior race. They are based off Klingons.
Yes.
So they are
Klingons, I guess.
They are they're punk. That's the other thing. Like they all have this punk and goth look to them, which you never see in fantasy. And I had to it took me like 3 times to tell my artist. I'm like,
I've never quite seen such a punk and goth sheep as some of that art. It's a little weird looking to me, but I think some people will really like it.
I don't think I've ever thought of goth in a fantasy setting, I guess, outside of like Ustalaw, maybe.
Yeah, right, outside Vampire. Like Vampire the Masquerade is nothing but goth. So they're very goth and punk. But that's because they're like warriors and they're all like super strong. They're big. They're kind of like the Tauren from World of Warcraft, only
if they were sheep.
Yeah, if they were sheep. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. We have the Crag.
Kragrak. They are earth-based people, but that doesn't mean they're all rock. Some of them are sand, and they change their bodies during a point in time and can become a different type of earth-based substance.
They're pretty cool. Like their teeth are like rocks. Like, their whole body is rock. So or sand, like anything.
To ask a clarifying question, what's going to be the difference between like this and a Norreed?
So an Oread is a versatile heritage that another ancestry takes to be a little bit connected to earth elementals, often Shaitan earth genies. But this is a specific ancestry that is made out of earth and has their own like customs and traditions that they're kind of different from an Oread based on the way like an Oread will be like, well, this is if you have a mud Oread, that's because you were related to a mud-based earth elemental, whereas Cragreks like kind of choose what kind of earth they're going to be based on, and they have pretty different feats, and they're like just generally rock people rather than like I'm a Leshy or an elf who has crystals growing on me or something like that. It's more of like, you know, like the rock people in Neverending Story or some other games or movies.
Borg
where
from
it's like,
Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Actually, very similar to that.
Yes.
And they're kind of spiritual. I mean, they're one of the gentle giants because the rocks are super strong, but they're very much into spirituality. And then last, Kakori, who are made of coral, and they are from the sea, and they're genderless. They actually have this whole new concept of gender. We're still working this out, but they're basically their role in society is instead their like how they're seen in their society, like their roles and their colors.
Because they're coral, so they kind of bud off.
Right. So they don't have genders, and it's a whole new concept. They're pretty cool. They look, put it this way, our artists hate drawing them. So because they're like, okay, take tons of coral and make it into a humanoid. They're like, oh, it's like, oh, I got to put in starfish, and I got to put in coral, and I got to put in shells. It's like, yeah, it's a lot of work. It was a good idea.
Interesting selling point. It's like,
it is.
Artists hate these top 10 tips to make your new PC.
It's a challenge. It was a good idea at the time, but they're pretty cool. So those are the ancestries plus dragons. Obviously, the Indigo dragons are native to the Indigo Isles, and you get all of that. You're going to get the history of the Indigo Isles. You're going to get Gazetteer for Rumplank, which is the largest city, the capital. And it's like 1,300 words. It's pretty big. We have Sea View, which is where the Orpork are, and that's like.
Do you mean it's 13,000? Because 1,300.
13,000. 13,000. Sorry, 13,000 words.
Yeah, that's like almost 20 pages. Maybe is 20 with maps and stuff.
Well, it's the capital, so it's going to be big. So we made sure, and it's big. It's actually a big city. I think it's 13,000 people, so it's pretty big. And the map, it took them a month to do the map. It's like he did every single house and did little shadows on them and everything. And
well, it's very important that map is detailed and correct. And I won't tell you why it needs to be, because that would be a spoiler for book 3.
It gets destroyed.
What are you saying?
I've played enough games to know that if it's
it doesn't
a detailed
get destroyed,
map,
it gets actually it's because our artist. Let me tell you this way. He does this on all of them. There's a pirate hangout, and in the pirate hangout, you literally see the dartboard and the little darts on the floor. Like he does a lot of detail. So I didn't tell him to do that. Trust me. I just said do this, and he just did it. Like he just put in like every single. There's actually a longer story to this, but I won't tell you a longer story. Is that every single like town was in there, every single house. I just said make it nice, and he went crazy. And then there's another town. We'll probably have little town write-ups in there. And then finally, there's even a section on. Oh, there's two. Wait, there's a section on Old Woody, which is the drink of the Indigo Isles, which needs you to roll on a random table when you drink it. Old Woody has been in all the all the Roll for Combat podcasts. And it has a long and illustrious history that if you drink it, random things will happen, and usually none of them that great. It is the ultimate. It's sort of like a deck of many things meets liquor. So that is going to be in the book. And then finally, we have the balance, which is the religious system of Alucard. It's the world of Battlezoo. And the balance is really freaking cool. Is the entire religion is based off a family, and there's a mother and there's a father, and there's not good or evil. There's law and chaos. Those are the two opposing dichotomies, and each each of them represents one of the sides, and they have children, and the children throughout the world actually interact with the world and are part of the world. Like they hang out in the world. So the children of the mother and father represent different aspects of the gods. So it could be revelry and rivalry. It could be like the spring, the seasons. It could be we have God of war, God of peace, and God of, I think it's restraint. There's like 3 gods. So all these gods are brothers and sisters. They each represent different things.
And siblings, because they most of them are like pretty gender fluid, and they will appear in whatever form somebody is thinking of.
That's the other thing is cool, is that they are what you think they are. So it's like, oh, if I think that God is a male human, that's what it looks like to me. But if you think that God is a Gamayan female, that's what it looks like to you. Like what you think they look like is actually what they look like. And actually no one even knows what their true forms are. And the forms they're usually within the same norms. Like everyone will usually see, the father as sort of an older figure and usually male, and the mother a little younger figure, but not always. It depends on your point of view. And the other thing is that makes them interesting is that if one of them dies, the other one dies. So if one of the siblings of like War and Peace die, then the other one dies. So war dies and peace dies. And that's why it's the balance, because you can't go too far in any one direction. And although they might be opposed from each other in their viewpoints, they got to keep it in check, because if they ever go too far in one direction, it could be the end of both of them. And what happens to them, no one knows. And new ones do appear to replace them, and even the gods have no idea. So
my favorite small tidbit about the deities is actually the fact that they're interlopers. Like the world existed and had their old religions and other belief systems and the balance, but like the balance, which is pretty predominant, has spread around because there was a golden age and a lot of cultures kind of had cultural diffusion. It's not as much like Golarian, where you'll sometimes be like, as soon as I move from this country, it completely shifts the culture, but more of like, there's stuff from all sorts of cultures, all sorts of ancestry, is not humanocentric. And so these gods just kind of showed up, and they, like most settings, if you have a god called the father and the mother, you'd be like, well, maybe they created the world, but these did not. They just kind of came in. So I think that's interesting, and it leads to some very interesting dynamics that I won't go into here, but that we'll be able to explore in the setting for years to come. I think we
can do a whole show on that. But there's a reason also why dragons are so powerful, and it's explained in the religion. Like it explains dragons. Finally, they're like, why are dragons so powerful? We have a very good reason why they're so powerful.
If you get our newsletter, we've talked a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, actually in the newsletter we gave it up. I forgot about that. We actually gave the history of the firstborn, the actually first child of the gods was the true dragon, the original dragon.
It was before the balance.
Yeah, before the balance. And they brought chaos, a little too much chaos. And then the parents were like, we need balance. Things are going a little out of hand and they're ruining the world. And actually, before the parents came, the world was ruled by kaiju. So this is a crazy world. I tell you,
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. That's what I'm saying. And
there's a lot of books. There's a lot of content. And you can tell there's a lot going on. Is there anything else that stood out to you that you want to ask us about?
Yes, I know. We're going on forever here.
Oh, I am just loving this all. I mean, the idea of Godzilla ruling the world before, deities is truly fun to me. It doesn't help to ask questions and keep, come prepared when you guys just segue perfectly into them. So I will never get to butt in, because we've managed to go from the bestiary to the dragons to the isles, and just so seamlessly. I might as well just like edit myself out and just let you two talk for
that's
well, that's no fun. Your viewers want to see you.
Yeah,
of course.
But to be honest, we haven't talked this much about Indigo or the balance ever. Like this is all new. This is all new.
So where can people find your guys' social medias or ways of supporting you guys in particular?
Battlezoo.com.
So that's where you can buy it.
That's where you can buy it.
For social media, I am just my name. It's like at Mark Seifter on Twitter. I have a Mark Seifter game designer on Facebook. I don't use it as much. Steven is Roll for Combat on pretty much everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I mean, we actually are also on our Discord channel. If you go to discord.rollforcombat.com, we're very active. It was the very first Discord by play instead of post by play sanctioned lodge ever for Pathfinder. So we have a lot of games on there. I'm on Twitter. You can find me Roll for Combat, Facebook, Roll for Combat. Also youtube.rollforcombat.com, because Mark and I do a live show every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about a topic and we take questions and, just anything. Like recently we've been talking about how to run a session -1, session 0, -1, session 1. And whatever, actually, if you have any ideas, even we'll come up with some ideas.
In addition to the Roll for Combat Discord, tiny.cc/arcane mark. It's the Arcane Mark Discord, because I am also on the Arcane Mark.
There's a lot of
live streams, and that has its own Discord and community that is sort of more the community for me and Linda.
I will give you one new thing that no one knows about. So we are going to be doing another Kickstarter this summer. Ooh. And you will be able to find Battlezoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual, which people probably guessed, but
people know that we've said it before.
Yeah, that we've said. But we are going to start talking about the next book, and the next book. That's what I tell people, like, because the Kickstarter was really popular. It did very well. The books have been doing very, very well. But that was the warm up. That was a test. The real one
test.
That was the test. Wayne just did the new one, and that's how I got Mark on board, because when I told him what this was, he lost it. It is going to be really, really good, and it is going to be. I've never seen it done the way I've never seen what we're going to do ever in any role-playing game yet, and it is going to probably change the game. I'll leave it at that. Is that, and anyone can use it. That's the fun part. Is that, again, that's something else we're trying to do, is like make sure that these are things that anyone can use and anyone can put into their game. So it's not like, I hate when you put out a book, it's like, all right, this is for wizards. It's like, all right, well, you just cut out like 90% of your audience by doing that. Like, no, this is for everyone. This is for players, it's for PCs, it's for people who just like to read and lore and stuff. And it's just going to be, of course, unique to the world of Alakar. And it is going to be using all the principles that we used in the Dragon book and Battlezoo Bestiary and Indigo Isles. And what we learned from those for this book. And we're starting to work on it.
I think it has the potential to explode.
Oh, well,
and I say that even though the last Kickstarter was 300,000.
Yeah, no, this is,
and some on the Kickstarter alone, and so compared to that one, this one has the potential to explode. Will it? I'm not sure. I think it might, but it has the potential.
Yeah.
All right,
and we'll come on when we have more stuff, we'll show you.
So my entire college fund is now just dedicated to this one Kickstarter, and then
okay, well, we don't need you to.
No, we do.
Put all of it in.
Go right ahead. Well, we try
enjoy
to keep
all
it
$20
too. No, well,
oh, okay. There you go.
You're trying to keep it reasonable. I mean, that's something else. Is like when Battlezoo came out. I mean, almost every book is $50, and ours was only 40. It's like everything was about 20% less than they normally are. And things have gone up even since then, because now WotC said they're going to raise their prices. Everyone's raising the prices to $60 for a standard book.
I mean, which is a fair price.
It's a fair price.
It's a fair price for it, with how expensive art is, how expensive the book is. Honestly, RPG books are depressed in their price, and the current price before the raising and all of that stuff is lower per word than the original 1974 D&D.
Yeah.
Without inflation, they had black and white art, not as much art, not as high quality stuff. It was just in a binder or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, right. That's the thing. People are like, oh, it was $9.99 back then. I'm like, I was alive back then. $9.99, you get a steak dinner for $9.99. It was like a little different back then. That
Although
was like
if you count the number of words you got for $9.99,
it was
it still is. It was still cheaper now.
It still is, and it's a mess. And plus, yeah, you get full color books, incredibly high quality. I mean, those books back then, they were fun, but man, were they a mess. I mean, people talk about first edition, but I dare you to read not the monster manual. Everyone reads the monster manual. I dare you to read the player's guide or the GMG. Those books are just wall-to-wall text, and they're incomprehensible. And yet, as a kid,
that's what made One so great.
I know,
is the fact that it was just a war game just thrown into a fantasy setting.
Yeah, and it was so hard to read, not until really 3.0, 3.5 did they really start thinking about this, like as an actual game. That's a whole topic we can do on our show, Mark, right there. I could talk about that
talk about Thaco for an hour.
I could talk about Thaco. You know what? I like second edition. All the video games are based off second edition, and it works very, very well as a video game.
When I was younger, that was where I got a lot of my early play was second edition.
Yeah, second edition gets a lot of bad rap, but I like second edition.
I think second edition is good for what it's. I think this is true for every edition of both D&D and Pathfinder. It's good for what it's trying to do. Like fourth edition is trying to be a more tactical, heavy, video gamey feel. Fifth edition very much trying to be rules light. Third edition trying to be like the in between of those two, I guess. And TUI has definitely found its own niche.
I will say 3.0 was a mess. 3.5 had to be done because 3.0 was definitely very poor.
But it was a revolution.
It was
like it had rough spots, definitely, but it was a revolution in certain aspects from D&D second edition that were really exciting revolution. But when you make a revolution and not an evolution necessarily, you're gonna break a few eggs, and so it makes sense that they had to refine from there too.
Yeah. I mean, 3.5 was woefully necessary, and then 3.75, aka Pathfinder. There you go. But that's why you needed to make Pathfinder second edition, because there was nothing left. It's been 20 years. It's like nothing is left. It's done. It needs to be evolved.
Is it okay that we're out in the weeds here?
Oh yeah, no, completely. Right. I'm just gonna edit all this part out, but I really enjoy talking about the history of D&D, because this is like pre me like coming up. I joined the TTRPG sphere at like year 8 of Pathfinder, purely because if I joined any earlier I'd be too young. And I really liked where second edition in general has gone, and like seeing TUI like Kickstarters like this like completely blow up, like even as like a very, very tiny freelancer that I am, it's truly like great to see just the overall community like come together for projects like this. Like I know none of my projects will ever, like hit like, Battlezoo Bestiary, but like just in general, seeing the trend start heading more towards this, people really start to go, oh, the archetype system, you could really start like exploding. It's not like prestige classes. It's so unique. And I absolutely love seeing the creative directions where you guys take, like True Dragons is not something I would have ever thought of, to be honest. I probably, if I went in, it was like Dragonborn.
Well, a lot of people have done that, and they've done a good job for doing that. Like Luis, from Paizo, of course, Luis, did a Dragonkin, and it's a good Dragonkin. But we did a True Dragon because we're out there to do the thing that is the wild and outlandish thing that other people aren't going to do. I think that's a pretty decent description of us at Battlezoo.
Yes. I think that's it. Well, because also we know how. I mean, like I've been playing, it's like, it's a humble brag, but it's like I've been playing since 77. And like, you know what? You play that long. It's like, that's why you always want to get a doctor who's older, because they have seen it all. They have more experience. They have wisdom. They've done this a long time. And I wasn't just playing, but I was trying to learn and develop. And I was in the industry indirectly through video games and other, areas. So, even just learning how to play and design video games helps you a lot with RPGs. A lot of it carries over. So it's like you need people like that to do the really hard stuff. I won't name names, but we have seen some other ambitious people, and we've been reading their books, and the first thing we said was like, oh yeah, rookie mistake. Like we see this stuff, like, yeah, that stuff I would have done 20 years ago. Like that's the stuff that you see people who haven't been doing it as long. And I see that even in coding, like in programming, it's like my day job. It's like I will see like younger programmers will program a certain way, the same way older programmers, they just know the better, more efficient ways to do it. So it's the same
I
thing.
personally don't think that only the people who are older have a monopoly on the best stuff, since I myself am not one of the older people in the industry, but I do see what Stephen means. I like to look at the good and the innovation in anybody's work, but there definitely are sometimes things where it's like, okay, this was very ambitious and it's a really good start, but they could have used some development or someone to come in and like use some other things that you find from experience in the industry, whether that's from many years or just from being really into it and doing a lot of analysis over a shorter period of time.
Well, that's the thing. That's why you have good editors, because if you have really good ideas, you might have these, and this I see a lot. You have very good ideas, but they were implemented incorrectly. That's where the developers come in and the editors, and they'll come in and smooth it out for you.
And you sound like my editor yelling at me.
Well, we're a small team, so that's why we need to have very strong people, because it's like, as I said, it's like between Mark and I feel like we fit like 7 people. It's like we do the work of 7-8 people. We don't need as big of a team, because he and I, between the two of us, can do a lot.
The number of people, even for just the books that we're putting out, right, which was like 3 for a Kickstarter. If we do a Kickstarter every year with 3, then that is around. What? Oh yeah, I guess it's more because it's the 3-part AP, and there's also the player's guide or whatever, but
and the 5e version.
Oh, and the 5e version. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that. So it's actually way more. Yes. But even if it was 3 books, right? Like the Paizo design team puts out 3 books. And for that, we have a design team of way more people than one, and an editing team and art team, and just a lot more people. So we're definitely doing it with fewer people by virtue of, so obviously you get some advantages when you don't have to coordinate with more people. You get some advantages when you are using people who are very fast at what they do. And then there are other ways to make up for the fact that having more perspectives is important, like for Stephen was talking about playtesting and getting a lot of playtesters and like beta readers to look at it, so that otherwise you run a risk when you have a smaller team of just like, well, only these few people looked at it and we missed something that lots of people would have noticed. That is harder for that to happen in a Paizo book when you have 2 designers look at the freelancers thing and there's like 3 or 4 edit passes at least. But easier to happen here, and so it helps with playtesters and beta readers.
Yeah, and also Mark and I both we're not married to the work. Like he and I are mature enough that if things get killed or need to be changed, so be it. Like, I'm just trying to make good work here. And if when people have a good idea, it's a good idea. I don't really care where it came from.
I always accept things. In fact, like Stephen was telling me recently that I accepted too many edits. He's like, actually, your original had some charm. We should go back and put in some more of it. As a writer, that feels really good to get that feedback, but also like, I've trained myself. I was like, no, this is crisper, it's cleaner language. I see why we're gonna do it. I'll accept all edits.
Well, that's also still finding our voice for the Battlezoo stuff, because if you think about it, we haven't done true lore yet. We did the Battlezoo Bestiary, which is based off a standardization, and even the part for monsters, the monster part system, you wrote that based off Paizo standards. So the lore section is new. The lore, I mean, you can base it off Lost Omens, and I would even say like, using more like Book of Geb type stuff, like more personal and more.
Or the intro of Secrets of Magic as well, where they were like treatises that were written by different people.
Right, and you wrote those or some of those.
Well, I wrote the On Essences by Marquise Cordelia Perseus, which is one of the treatises in Secrets of Magic, the one on essences.
Yeah. There you go. So we're still finding our path, but yeah, we're trying to add value to the community in new and unique ways. That's something else. It's like a lot of people can do adventure paths, and I mean, there's a million every day. There's another one, but what is yours doing that's different? You know, a lot of people can put out bestiaries. Well, what is yours doing the different? And first, ours is normal people are making the monsters, like that are being voted by the community, and also. We have full color, top-notch artists, the same ones that Paizo uses for all these monsters. Like, I'm not skimping out. And that's the first thing people do because they're like, oh, let me see the bill for artwork. Oh, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Okay, I'm not doing that, because artwork is expensive. But I'm like, well, that's what it takes. But then you get the old, you have to spend money to make money. Well, hate to break it, it's true. So there you go.
Yeah, I think a comment that you said in particular, like, it had me interesting, was related to how both projects are in both 5e and 2e. And an interesting thing I just wanted to bring up, because I work with this a lot, is you mentioned that the 5e monsters are very like standard block and you need to like follow this format. I convert, so not to toot my own horn here, I convert a lot of 5e monsters to 2nd edition. Almost done with the Tal'Dorei Reborn guide, but holy shit, there's a lot of monsters in that one. I think it's just the wording is different, because when you look at dragons in 5e compared to 2e, the only thing you're really missing is spellcasting, but Draconic Frenzy is like multi-attack. I think what's interesting seeing the blend of the two systems is just how they both approach the same concept and have very similar abilities, just called two different things. I don't know. I just wanted to.
I won't get into that. I won't get into the reasons why. I know.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I know some of the reasons why they do things at 5e and WotC. It's basically comes down to the design philosophy, and they're trying to keep things simple, and they're trying to, they vastly simplify things on purpose. That, by the way, is an excellent book. I'd say most books I read, I'm not that impressed with, but that book was a very, very good book, the Tal'Dorei book.
I think Tal'Dorei and Fizzbands were two of my. I like where 5e's going in that case, because Fizzbands focused a lot on the lore while also presenting some really interesting monster. To be honest, a Draco Hydra just is cool to me.
Yeah, a lot of people do like Fizzbands. That's actually a very popular one. And the Tal'Dorei book. Funny thing is, I have the original Tal'Dorei book.
Hey, same.
And the original and the new one, it's they just took it and made it nicer. It's like a very nice book, but that's an example of like a high art budget, and you just don't see that. It's very rare. Like, there's only maybe 5 publishers, I think, that have art budgets that high, but they have the money. So if anyone should be able to spend it, that's them.
Well, I wanted to thank you guys for coming on to do an interview that was originally meant to be 20 minutes that completely blew it out of the water, but so worth it. 20 minutes, hour 20.
Cut it into
number.
5 parts.
Yeah, an hour and 120, same number.
We warned you.
Of course.
I warned you once we get.
Oh no, it's completely worth it. I'm so excited to see where the Battlezoo line goes in general, and super excited to see where this summer project is taking us.
Boy.
I can't even wait for more people to find out about that, because I think it could explode.
Yeah,
maybe a part 2 interview when that drops.
Oh, I
think Steven's gonna have us running the rounds.
I think we're gonna be very busy.
When I was working on Battlezoo before, one thing that impressed me was that, like, Paizo does not really put very many staff members on interviews like that much. And so Steven had me on interviews for Battlezoo, the first Battlezoo Bestiary, probably like more than Paizo has put me on interviews, not counting panels at a convention that we're doing, but interviews over all 8 years that I was at Paizo. So I imagine that we're going to be doing a lot of interviews once that gets announced. And I think we'd be happy to do one with Deadly D8 and with all sorts of other places too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And maybe we can compare dogs. Get my dogs on camera.
Hey, you know what? That could be good. We can build it into the topic somehow. I'm thinking of a way to bridge with seamless crossover.
Brand new Shuni Ancestry, the American Pitbull yelling terrier.
I like the Shuni.
I like
a lot
Shunies
of people
well.
thought the Shuni was based off Eric Mona dog because Eric has one of those.
Yeah, but Eric got Xerxes after Shuni.
I know, that's the weird part. He got him after. So maybe Eric was influenced by the Shuni. It's the other way around.
Oh, there's a dog.
There's a dog.
Just for a second.
I gotta let her out. That's what my dog
my
does.
brother just made it home.
That's what happens to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking around with us for extra time. I should probably go back to judging monsters so that I indeed do finish on Monday. By the end of day Monday. I don't have that many left, but they're significant enough. It's going to take the rest of today and Monday to do it. Like we each had 85 and I've done 60 some. So there's still a fair number to go to.
Hey, it's James from the future. I just want to say big thank you to Mark Seifter and Stephen Glicker for coming on and talking to me about the Battlezoo line. This was really, really fun, and you can totally check them out. If you're not already subscribed to Deadly D8, I suggest you subscribe button and ring the bell. We got tons of great content, animated content, anything that really revolves around Pathfinder 2e, and I will see you guys in the next interview. Goodbye.